Hello everyone, welcome to Headlines of the Day. This is 5th of April 2022 and we are back again with some of the major articles from the Hindu newspaper. Let's begin our today's discussion with the very first article on page number 1 from GS2 Polity and Governance that talks about Lok Sabha passing the new Criminal Procedure Bill. From this article, you have to consider what are the key highlights of Criminal Procedure Identification Bill 2022, its objectives, criticism and the possible scenario ahead. Moving on page number 1 and 12, there are two articles from GS3 Environment section that talks about the recent IPCC report. Okay, so the articles are headlined as Energy Sector Needs Major Revamp, says the IPCC report. And then there is another article on page number 12 that talks about IPCC report may spell death knell for coal-based units. All right. From these articles, you have to know about the facts related to the IPCC. You have to know about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, its assessment reports and its recent analysis to mitigate the impact of greenhouse gas emissions and what are the recommendations in this particular context. Moving on page number 4 from GS3 Economy section, there's an article that is headlined as Upsc quashes the LOC against Scribe. So here we are talking about the lookout circular against a journalist called Rana Ayub. From this article, you have to consider what is a lookout circular. Does an LOC lead to an arrest? All right. Moving on page number 5 from GS1 Art and Culture, there's an article about the Jagannath Temple. So the ASI wants, that is Archaeological Survey of India, wants Odisha government to tweak beautification plan around the Jagannath Temple. You have to learn the facts related to Jagannath Temple. Moving on page number 6 from GS2 International Relations, there's an editorial article that talks about the road to Ukraine peace runs through Delhi. From this article, you have to consider why did Russia launch a full-scale military invasion of Ukraine, Russia's demand, how financial and economic sanctions imposed by the European Union and G7 countries have impacted the Russian economy and India, the progress of peace talks, significance of mediation or assisted negotiation, it is the right choice for India in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, India's stand, and what is India's long-term interest in the present scenario, and finally the possible scenario ahead. Moving on page number 6 itself from GS2 Polity and Governance, there's another article, Push the Policy Needle Forward on Migrant Support. From this article, you have to consider what are the causes and impacts of migrant crisis during pandemic. You have to know about the large-scale relief efforts by the governments like One Nation, One Ration Card project, the Affordable Rental Housing Complexes Scheme, the e-Shram portal, and draft a migration policy, and what more strategic steps need to be taken to push the policy needle forward. Moving on page number 7 from GS2 Health section, there's an article about autism. This article is headlined as Better Early Than Late. From this article, you have to understand what is autism spectrum disorder, its symptoms, what is the early intervention and its role in treatment of autism spectrum disorder, challenges to early intervention and what lies ahead. Moving further, on page number 8 from GS2 International Relations, you'll find an article that talks about India-Australia Trade Agreement. So from this article, you have to consider what are the main features of economic cooperation and trade agreement, what are the key sectors being opened for this business and how will disputes be resolved. Moving on page number 8 itself from GS2 Polity and Governance, there's an article about the AFSPA Act. So the article is headlined as the partial rollback of Armed Forces Special Powers Act. You have to understand the history of AFSPA in Northeast. How is AFSPA viewed? And why has the Home Ministry decided to reduce the number of disturbed areas under the AFSPA Act? Okay. Moving on page number 9 from GS3 Economy section, there's an article that talks about caste hierarchies and migration patterns. From this article, you have to understand how economic wealth and ownership of assets via caste networks influence international migration and what interconnections exist between the caste and international migration and what are their implications. Moving on page number 10 from GS2 Polity and Governance, there's an article about J&K delimitation. J&K delimitation panel starts talks, faces protest in Jammu. So what is the J&K delimitation commission proposal? Why does the J&K delimitation exercise matter? Why has the proposal triggered a controversy and what is the possible scenario ahead? Moving on page number 13 from GS2 Health section, there's an article that is headlined as 99% of world's population is breathing polluted air, says the World Health Organization. From this article, you have to understand the major findings of the World Health Organization's recent data on air pollution, What is the importance of curbing fossil fuel use and taking other tangible steps to reduce the air pollution levels, and other measures need to be adopted in this particular context? Moving on page number 14 from GS3 economy section, there's an article that is headlined as Manufacturing Slows to a 6-month Low, says the Purchasing Managers Index. You have to understand what is the Purchasing Managers Index and certain facts related to it. Alright, that's a wrap of today's edition of Headlines of the Day. For regular updates, you can follow us on our social media handles, and for more such videos, do stay tuned to the Next IAS YouTube channel.